Okay, so today we're doing a sequence I call the mixed bag. So this is a mix of hips and spine, and they are separate but complementary postures. So usually the hardest postures we do in this class are where we're trying to do the hips and spine in one pose. So today generally we're not doing that, but each of the postures I selected within each set complement the postures we do later in the set. So hopefully you'll see that as we go. So we're going to start in the way that we start many of our yin classes, just with the right leg straight, the left foot to the inside of the thigh. This is our butterfly pose. And you might want something under your knee here. You also may want to support your forearms or forehead, or potentially sit on something like a block or a folded blanket, all of which you're welcome to do. Excuse me. What we're looking for is a stretch back here that feels safe for our body overall, okay? And we want to be able to hold it for 3 minutes. So these are our hamstrings. And we're just going to allow gravity to pull us forward and down here for those 3 minutes. Okay, so let's switch sides. Same thing on the other side. This is half butterfly. Okay, everyone. So those first two postures targeted the legs, the hips, we could say, the thigh. Now we're going to target the spine. Very similar shape, so it may not feel that different. But I think what you'll find is with both legs straight, this is called a caterpillar, you don't feel as much stretch in your legs. I certainly don't. Now you may not feel a lot in your back, and that's maybe actually a good thing. It probably means you have a relatively healthy back. You might feel some stretching if you have a lot of muscular tension back there. Most people don't. So you just relax forward and down. We're targeting kind of right in here. I feel more in my neck, honestly, even though that's not where we're targeting. And sometimes that happens. But just know that whatever amount of stretch you feel, that's okay. Okay, so this isn't usually for most people a powerful stretch. It usually doesn't feel intense. We don't want it to. Okay? If it's too much, we might be damaging this area. Even though it may feel really good while we're doing it, we may actually be creating damage. So we're just going to relax forward and down and let gravity take over for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and come on up, and we'll make our way back onto our back and just relax for a few moments. Now again, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling my back, my spine, even my tailbone this morning. It's feeling rather sensitive. And as I come out of that pose, I can feel all those areas very sensitive. Now again, from my perspective, that's good news, because that means those postures we did somehow, in some way, have influenced those parts of my body. And generally speaking, that's going to be a good thing. If you have what's called an acute injury, then that's bad. During an acute injury, you just want to rest. But the acute phase of an injury usually doesn't last very long. Hours, days, maybe weeks, depending on the type of injury. But not months, not years. That's called chronic injury, chronic pain. And at that point, you want to start to stimulate the body to coax it to heal. And oftentimes that doesn't feel good. Now, I'm not giving you medical advice, just to be clear. So you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt and talk to your doctor and whatever method you do to make sure what you're doing is safe for you. But these are just general principles that I've learned over the years studying with my teachers. Okay, let's bring our legs in and we'll shake it out a bit, a little bit of movement. Again, I can feel those areas that are very tender right now. And again, my intention in the class today is to stimulate those areas. And hopefully by doing that, I will gradually coax my body to help heal and make those areas better. Okay, let's hinge up to seated. So hands under the hips, palms down. We extend our legs straight up. If there's any pain in your back, you're going to bend your knees. Otherwise, the legs are straight. Let's lift the head and neck. Take a nice deep breath. And as we exhale, we lower the legs toward the ground just before they touch. Pause. Inhale the legs up and exhale as you come on up to seated. Okay, so this next one can be quite challenging for many, myself included. This is the half dragonfly. So we start by positioning ourselves for a dragonfly, which is just the legs are straight and wide, pretty much as wide as they'll go. Okay, so we're here. And then what we'd like to do is fold. I'm not going to mirror, just to be clear. We're going to fold over the left leg. So you're probably going that way, all right? Folding over the left leg. We're going to hold onto the foot, or you could put a towel or a strap and hold that. Now we're not trying to pull down, to be clear. Okay, so we're not using our arm strength to go further. Rather, we're just holding ourselves in place. Okay? Again, we want to feel safe. It doesn't need to be super intense, but it might be. This one tends to be quite intense, at least for some people. And I want to feel it here in my right waist and ribs, okay? So if I feel that, then I'm going to stay there. If you don't feel it, then what I'd like you to do is roll or stack your right shoulder over your left. At some point, you should feel your right waist and ribs. You may also feel the inside of your left thigh. That's fine. That's complementary. That's where we're going next. However, if it's too much, you can bend your left knee to eliminate that intense stretch and focus more on the right waist and ribs exclusively. Okay, so gradually switching sides. Take your time. I think you all have heard me say it many times, but I'll repeat it. Over the years, I've learned as a teacher that even though you repeat the same thing over and over again, a lot of times people don't hear it. It doesn't register. So repeating things is a very important part of teaching. One of my teachers actually says, repetition is the mother of clarity. So we get really clear on something by hearing it repeated over and over and over again. So we want to feel the stretch in our left waist and ribs. We want to be sure that this is safe, that there isn't something going on in part of our body. It may not be in our waist, it might be in our thigh or our knee or our shoulder or our neck. Excessive pain that doesn't feel safe. I think you've all heard me speak about the fact that sometimes discomfort or even pain can be part of the healing process, but sometimes it's not. And to know which is difficult at times. It really is. Sometimes it's we really don't know. Is this pain good for me or not? So if you're ever in question, my recommendation is assume it's not. Come out of the pose. Do some research. Maybe talk to your doctor, your physical therapist, your yoga teacher. Maybe experiment on your own. I don't know. But if you determine that, okay, this pain, it's not pleasant, but I actually think that this is part of the healing process for me, then you can play around with allowing it in your practice. And then you want to see whether or not allowing that pain gradually over time actually lessens it ultimately. So this is a very important principle that I have learned to apply in my own practice, my own life, and with my students. That it sounds counterintuitive, but running away from pain and discomfort, whether it's physical or psychological, just perpetuates it. It perpetuates it. The pain is there because it's asking us to pay attention to something. And so if we do pay attention to it, if we say go into it, then the result is usually it goes away, it dissipates, it heals. If we ignore it, if we run away, then my experience is it will just increase. But again, there are two kinds of pain. So we need to be very, very clear about that. Okay, let's go ahead and come on out of that. And we'll transition into a frog. Okay, so we come into this position. Knees are as wide as they'll go. And we can drop down onto our forearms like so. Okay, looking for a stretch in the inside of our thighs. Those are our adductors. All right, so again, I feel the stretch, I feel safe, and I feel that I can hold this for the full length of time. Those are the three, the trifecta of our practice. And again, I think all of you have heard me say that in the past. So two kinds of pain. One is good for us. Pain, discomfort, it's a continuum. I think you've heard me say in the past, most of you, that the way we measure pain is on a scale of 1 to 10. That's it. We have telescopes that can see light years away, far into the distant reaches of the galaxy, and yet we still measure pain on a scale of 1 to 10. There's no device, there's no magic thing that tells us how much pain you're in. You decide. So what if my 3, pain 3, is for you a 10? You know? Again, pain tolerance. This is a very interesting thing. I had a conversation with a student who's a bit older, and I believe he's in his 60s, 70s, and he said that his pain tolerance has gone way up as he's aged. Now, I don't know if that's typical, but he was just saying if he had the level of pain that he has now daily on a regular basis when he was, say, in his 30s, he would have thought something was really, really wrong with him. But now it's just something that he's learned to live with. It's just part of his experience. Interestingly, this is how some people who have helped people with chronic pain actually deal with the pain, is to reframe it or reformulate it in our own mind. Because if we think the pain isn't supposed to be there, then we suffer. But if we can just experience the pain as another part of our experience, a normal part of our experience, we stop labeling it pain. Interestingly, the pain goes down. Because again, it's just this scale. It's our perception, 1 to 10. So resisting the pain, studies have shown, increases it. Pushing against it inside, oh, I wish this pain wasn't here, actually makes it worse. Saying, okay, the pain is just here, but there's other things going on, actually makes it go down. So it's very interesting. All right, let's go ahead and rest. I recommend a child pose. So you can bring your knees together, hips to heels. If that's not comfortable, then choose a position that is. Okay, from there, let's come into a tabletop. Do a little bit of the marauding bear. So when I'm doing this, I'm looking for areas in my body that are stiff or dull or painful. So right now, my hips, if I drop my hips, I feel something. So my tendency, again, is if I find that, then that's what I repeat. I kind of repeat. If a certain movement is painful, I'm going to repeat it. If my body says something, right? If I feel something. Ideally, what I want to feel with my body is almost nothing. No pain, just a pleasant, just body sensation of having a body. So when I feel pain or discomfort, that's where I, again, look. I repeat, because I'm looking back in that direction, you might say. Okay, from there, we come into down dog. Same idea here. Just a little bit of movement. And again, my hope for you is that as you move, you're completely free of pain. That would be perfect. That would be ideal. But for me, that's certainly not the case these days. Okay, let's bring our right knee toward our right wrist. The hips are down and back. And then you could stay up on your hands, but most people are going to be more comfortable coming to your forearms. Okay, the hips can rock to the left or to the right. You could put a block here if you wanted to help support the hip. The knee can be forward, out to the right. The right foot can be back toward the hip, or you can pull it up closer to the front edge of your mat if you like. That foot could flex or point. Okay, and again, we want to feel it out here. These are our glutes, gluteals, extensors, abductors, all of those are in this area. 10 muscles that we are potentially targeting here. So again, good pain, bad pain. Wouldn't it be great if there was a real difference? Interestingly, the same is also true of pleasure. A lot of things that are pleasurable are unfortunately bad for us, right? So one thing that modern people tend to take very lightly, but is pretty literally poison. There's a video I could send you if you're interested in looking at it. But you might be able to Google it and find it. It's very tedious, but if you're into science and you need scientific proof of things, there's a gentleman who gave a talk, and I believe the name of the talk is Sugar, the Bitter Truth. And right at the beginning, he's a chemist. So he's trying to show you chemically how sucrose, table sugar, it's in everything. He tries to show you how sucrose is poison. The way that your body processes it is poison. It's the same as alcohol. We all know that alcohol's not good for us, right? That it's poison, that the liver is filtering it and all this kind of stuff. Well, table sugar is the same way. A lot of people don't know, but by the FDA's own standards, if table sugar were introduced today as a substance for consumption in American society, it would be labeled as a narcotic by the FDA's own standards. But because it was already everywhere by the time the FDA was founded, they're not going to ban it, or they didn't ban it. But just because it's everywhere doesn't mean it's good for us. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides here. So that's one that a lot of people resist. They don't like hearing that. Now, sometimes people think, well, I eat fruits, or I eat agave nectar or whatever. Well, most of it just ends up being sugar at the end of the day. So sucrose is one form of sugar. So is fructose. Fructose isn't really that much better. If you're eating a fruit, a real fruit, not of juice, because the juice has the best part of the fruit taken out. What this gentleman says in the talk, one of the things he says, is that where nature put the poison, it also put the antidote. So fruit has a lot of fiber. So yes, it has fructose, but it has a lot of fiber. Table sugar, cane sugar, comes from what is essentially like a stick, a stalk. I mean, it doesn't get much more fibrous than that. It's like bamboo. And yes, if you chew on that or whatever, you can taste a little bit of sweetness. But what we moderns do is we take that, we refine it, we extract it, and we take out all of the cure, the fiber, right? If you were eating that in the wild, you would be consuming all of this fiber. So we take all that out and we just leave what we like. So point being that we like sweets, we like chocolate cake, we like candy, right? Halloween's coming up. All this, everyone's leaving out candies and sweets everywhere. Now, it's true that if we had just a little bit of it every now and then, it wouldn't be such a problem. Sweets used to be very expensive. And that's where the kid in the candy store expression comes from. Is back in the old days, your grandma might take you into a candy store and say, pick something out, maybe once a week or less. And it would be very expensive. It would be a treat. But now, everything is full of sugar or other things that essentially act the same in our body as sugar. And we love it. Our food industry, like most industries, is just driven by profits. And people are going to eat more of something that tastes good. So if I load my food up with sugar and people like the way it tastes, they're going to eat more of it. And don't be fooled. Don't think that because you're at Whole Foods or you're eating something called healthy choice or natural choice or something like that, that it isn't loaded with sugar. The only way you're going to know is by reading the label. And if you look at a lot of these healthy things, the first, second, or third ingredient is some form of sweetener, some form of sugar. And again, why? Because that's what's going to sell. Is it good for you? No. Okay, let's go ahead and come on out of that. We're going to come into a Sphinx. So you prop yourself up on your elbows, like so. Looking for a little bit of compression in the back, so I'm not feeling it. I could either prop my elbows up on something, or I'm just going to simply straighten my arms like so. Okay, and this is the Sphinx posture. Your head can be held up, drop forward, drop back, shoulders depressed, relaxed, legs together or apart. So, asking the question, is this pain good for me? Excellent question to ask. And again, generally, these things in yoga apply in life as well. So, I know many of you may just come to this class and then, forget everything we talk about here, and that's fine. But what I've learned is what applies in yoga generally applies in life as well. So if I'm struggling at work, if I'm struggling in a relationship, if I'm struggling with life, with the coronavirus, with the pandemic, all of these things, usually those areas of struggle are opportunities for self-reflection. Self-reflection. Usually what we want to do is blame someone else. So again, coronavirus, we can blame the coronavirus for what's going on, for our misery, for things not being the way we want. But from a yogic or spiritual perspective, really we want to look at ourselves. What are we doing? How are we causing our own suffering? I'm not saying that coronavirus doesn't play a role. I'm not saying other people don't play a role. But one of the most powerful lessons we can learn in spirituality is to take our power back. And as long as I'm blaming someone or something else for my misery, then I'm basically powerless. It means that someone else can affect my happiness, affect my joy. And the minute I say, you know what, I'm not going to allow that. And it's a decision you make. It's just something you decide for yourself. I'm just not going to allow that. Then we begin looking at our own thoughts, our own deeds, our words, how we deal with people, and we let that guide us. And it's a very powerful way to live your life. Okay, let's come on down. We're going to rest for a moment. And then let's do a few windshield wipers here. So arms out like wings, palms down. We bend those knees, feet in the air, and just let our feet drop side to side a few times. So I was talking earlier about things that are painful, you know, so this hurts a bit for me. So I'm doing a few extras today. And as I repeat the movement, the pain is lessening. Probably won't disappear completely, but again, this is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of thing I'm looking for, is that movement is stimulating my body in a way that is lessening that pain, the movement. Movement is very therapeutic, at least it can be. Okay, our next posture, this is the cattail. So I'm just going to turn, you don't need to, but I'm going to turn so I can face the camera, okay? All right, what we'd like to do is we'll take our left leg up, prop our head up on the right hand and elbow. We're going to take our right leg back. This leg could be straight or bent. Okay, I'm going to have it bent for now. And then we reach back, we grab the right foot with our left hand, we pull it in. Okay, now leaning back, so left shoulder toward the ground, deepens the twist, and this is our twist for today's class. So if you want to emphasize that, want to take a nice deep twist, you can do that. For most people, this isn't the easiest or most comfortable twist, but it is a very powerful twist, so just do the best you can with it. Also stretching the front of the right thigh. That's usually where you're going to feel the most sensation. So twists we often don't feel in our spine. We feel them elsewhere. So again, is this pain good for me? Is this pleasure good for me? And again, not all pleasure is bad. Not all pain is good. This is why, you know, yoga or spirituality, whatever you want to call it, it's really about being awake. It's about being attentive. It's about paying attention. Because if we don't, we're just sort of led by pleasure and pain. We're kind of like a pinball. I don't know how popular pinball is today. I mean, I hardly ever see pinball machines anymore. But again, when I was growing up, they were relatively common. You'd see them around. And so hopefully everyone knows what a pinball machine is, regardless of your age. Even if you think it's like a outdated thing. I think even in my time, it was a bit of an outdated thing. I'd probably much rather have played Pac-Man or something like that. But pinball machine, you've got a silver ball. It's bouncing around inside of this, you know, slanted case. So the ball is always trying to fall. And what you try and do is you try and knock it around, push it around, keep it up, hit various spots to get points and things like that. Very ancient technology, but could be hours of fun if you know what you're doing. But this is how we are often as human beings if we're not paying attention. We're just sort of like a pinball. We're just bouncing around from one place to another. Let's switch sides. So again, we bounce around. It's not objects, but it's pleasure and pain. Oh, this brings me pleasure. I'll do more of that. Oh, this is painful. I'm going to avoid that. Well, again, hopefully if you're understanding what I'm sharing with you, this is a bad way to live, because there are many things, again, sucrose, table sugar, as harmless as it seems, it's a narcotic. It's not good for you. Even in small amounts. I'm not saying it's not tolerable. I'm not saying it's not pleasurable. And every now and then a little bit of pleasure it's okay. So again, like in the old days, maybe once a week you go and grandma buys you a sweet. That's fine. You'll be able to handle it. But that's not what's happening today, right? Sweets are cheap. And kids want them all the time, every day. And many kids have them every day. And it's not a coincidence that diabetes is through the roof. Through the roof. Obesity is through the roof. You can look at the stats. It's just been going up and up and up, these types of diseases, these types of problems. So, we can look around and pretend like, oh, well, why is that happening? Why is there so much obesity? What's going on? We don't understand, but it's clear. Again, if we're awake, if we're paying attention, there's no mystery involved. Our food is absolutely just infused with sugar. It's very hard to avoid it. It's in breads. It's in all kinds of things that you wouldn't imagine it to be. If you start to read labels, you'll see this. So again, I'm not really trying to talk about food or give you advice on food. My point is just that we as human beings, if we're not paying attention, and it's not because we're bad. I'm not saying anyone's evil or you're doing it wrong. But if we're not paying attention, we're just going to be led by pleasure and pain through our life. And unfortunately, I wish it wasn't this way, but unfortunately, that will not lead us to health, at the very least. And in my experience, it also doesn't lead to happiness. You're basically an addict. You're basically not any different than someone who's addicted to heroin, who's looking for their next fix. Now, your next fix might be a Starbucks latte, so it's maybe less harmful than heroin, but it's not really that different. It's just a lower grade of the same thing. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we can actually be led or guided by what is actually good for us? And that's what yoga sort of advocates for and recommends. Okay, so let's go ahead and come on out of that. One last posture. This one might be the most challenging, so let's take a little bit of time to look at it. You can sit on your heels, okay? You can sit between your heels. You can sit on a block. Your feet can point back or out to the sides. Your knees could be together or apart, all right? Now, we want to be free of pain in the feet, ankles, and knees. And what I'd like you to do is, if you feel a stretch in the front of your thighs in this position, then you're just going to stay here, because that's already therapeutic. That's already beneficial. If you don't feel that, then you can join me. You can begin to come back onto your hands, and maybe you stop there. Elbows, maybe you stop there. If you have a big pillow, you can put that behind you, lay on that, and stop there. That's where a lot of people stop with this posture. Or you may be able to come back further, which is fine. It's not the purpose or the goal, but some people can do this, and this is also therapeutic. So again, it's just different levels or different types of effects on the body are happening that are beneficial for us, okay? All right, so this is the full saddle pose, very therapeutic posture. So again, today, it's interesting to think about. And again, if you get something from these talks, great. If you don't, feel free to ignore me. I'm used to it. Been teaching a long time. But again, in my experience, and you may find this to be true already, or you may never have thought about it before, or maybe one day you'll remember this talk. Something will happen in your life and you'll remember it and you'll say, oh yeah. So again, is this pain good for me? Some pain is, some pain isn't. Is this pleasure good for me? Some is and some isn't. So some people find exercise really pleasurable. Well, within reason and in general, exercise is good for you. I say that because there are actually types of exercise that you could do that are harmful. And again, some people actually get addicted to exercise and they actually end up hurting themselves. They wear their joints out, they strain muscles, they create all kinds of problems because they're addicted to adrenaline, which is created naturally. So again, I think a lot of us think, ooh, heroin addiction, like bad. But we think, well, adrenaline is made by our own body, so it must be good. No, you can overdo that too. I actually think some people are addicted to doing yoga. So it's, again, anything can become a problem if there's too much, if we're addicted to it, if we don't have the right relationship with it. So I think it's a wonderful practice. You know, it's like a yoga practice. For me, yoga isn't just about these postures. It really is as much or more about what's going on up here. So as we go through our life, through our day, and we are seeking out some pleasure, you know, we can just ask ourselves, is this pleasure good for me or not? So I enjoy playing the guitar. And so I've played a lot of guitar in my life. And that's actually been relatively good for me in many ways. It's made me money. Because I can play the guitar, I've gotten to do music for my students. It wasn't my intention in learning it, but I had enough facility to be able to then do music as part of my yoga, which is, again, an added value for my students, something that I can share with them. So I would say on balance, that's been a good thing. But there are other pleasures that maybe I've pursued in my life that weren't good. Okay, let's go ahead and come on out of this. We'll just rest for a moment. All right, let's bring our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze. You can shake it out. And then you can go ahead and unwind onto your back. Going to rest for the next few minutes. Set a timer for 6 minutes. And just let your body be still.